What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about Lucid. I want to go over some of the data points, break it down, what moved it today, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So Lucid went down 3.53%, 1145 the high, 1092 the low, and just shy of around 6 million shares being traded. So rather on the low end. Plus today we did start to see some cracking, not just with Lucid, but across the board. Nothing really to do with data points though. We had a lot of good data and pretty much in line with expectation. And so we had composite, manufacturing services, as well as Michigan consumer sentiment. Again, all coming in pretty much in line with the forecast. So the market didn't really push lower because of this. Rather, again, a lot of geopolitical issues between Canada and the States. So a lot of kind of uncertainty now is starting to escalate because of that. As well, we did have this that happened pretty much midway throughout the day. So yen did spike against the US dollar. And typically, I know that might not seem like that big of a deal, but historically speaking, that is a massive sign for hedge funds to deleverage and kind of pivot to kind of risk off for the most part. So in general, a lot of this stems from what came out data point wise yesterday, but still this is again what most likely caused a little bit of a sell-off in the broader market. At the same time, close to when things started to really go down, we did have both JPM and also Bank of America really coming out saying that don't anticipate any cut next week. And in my opinion, I think the market already came to that realization a couple of weeks back. But the fact that they did say that probably didn't help. It just, maybe the last minute individuals or whatever else, ignorant individuals, still were believing a cut is on the table next week. And I think it just, maybe that caused a little bit of a sell-off as well. Aside from that, there really wasn't that much in news from Lucid. So no press releases, no SEC filings or anything like that. We did have this that came out. So Lucid to drop China from magnet supply in 2026, switch to Saudi. So in my opinion, and you know me, I always like to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. Logically, this should have been done a long time ago. So Lucid kind of dropping the ball, and I have brought up, I think they actually had it was down the road as what they always said in close to AMP2. Technically magnet supply that was, I think, announced in 2024. So logically, this should have been something that could have been done a long time ago. I don't think Lucid had any long-term agreements with any Chinese firms for these magnet supplies. So logically, Lucid should have pivoted a long time ago. But at the same time, for those of you that kind of read between the lines as I do, maybe this might also be a sign that they don't have sufficient amount of magnets for maybe the mid-size. Again, that's me playing devil's advocate and everything else. Aside from that though, shorts have actually been consistently returning over the last couple of trading days. So today shorts returned roughly around 499,000 shares, 35.7% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 46.5 million shares overall being shorted. Cost to borrow has dropped significantly. So it was roughly around 253% yesterday. Now it is 32.19. Of course, over the last just day and a half, it went down from around that $12 range to where it landed today at $11. So wasn't the greatest, because I think in general it would have helped if Lucid put out some news on moving up the timeline or whatever, because all we got coming from a investor standpoint was this right here, saying that Rockwell Automation partners with Lucid to support Saudi Arabia EV plant. That is it. So that's the bad thing about Lucid, is they put out vague type of articles. Sometimes it's not them, but sometimes we get vague information, and it's left to the investor to try to piece things together or come to a conclusion. And generally, if we don't get any sound response from Lucid, it's usually seen as a negative. So it would have been really epic if Lucid came out and said, hey, you know what, our most recent partnership with Rockwell is going to help move up the blah 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 for AMP2. So unfortunately, we didn't get anything. But still, nonetheless, though, looking at the options, we did have 1.5 million in calls, 3.9 in puts. 55% of all the options being done were bearish in nature. From a bull standpoint, you see going into next week for it to recover. to that 1150. Bears are anticipating for it to be kind of sub 11. So definitely next week will be a pretty big week. On the secondary market, we did have 3 transactions, 2 sells and 1 buy. So big money wasn't really doing too much. So most of the volume did come from algorithmic trading as per usual. These are some of the transactions that did occur on the dark pool above $100,000. So nothing significant. The largest was $560,000. That was done roughly around noon. And that does coincide with when a lot of those firms started to say, don't anticipate any cut for next week. So maybe that caused some hedge funds to kind of sell. And again, as I mentioned, typically with this yen spiking in obviously against the USD, that usually does cause some hedge funds to get out. And conveniently, a lot of these look very much like hedge funds. So I think hedge funds were pretty much unloading a lot of Lucid through the dark pool, and probably as well a lot of other stocks out there. Aside from that, with it closing at 1107, it is right below this R1. So 1109, and actually after hours is slightly above that. So that's going to be a key pivot going into next week. Aside from all of that fun stuff on the actual chart itself, you can kind of see on the 5-day, it's really unfortunate on how fast it really did escalate this kind of downtrend. It would have been nice if it was able to hold some of those gains, but right now it is at least above that 10-day moving average. So baby steps, I guess. So as long as they can hold that 10-day moving average for the next couple trading days, then it should have a little bit of a nice recovery, but still that 50-day moving average is a very big deal for Lucid. Aside from that, looking at the market position, it is rather choppy. Could go still in either direction, so it's going to largely come down to the data and how the market interprets everything that is happening between EU, Greenland, Canada. So a lot of things are kind of stuck in limbo. Hopefully a lot of that doesn't really escalate, and then we can kind of have a nice recovery. But it is all going to come down to the data. Plus, on a side note, next week is going to be big for EVs with Tesla earnings and so forth. So let me know your thoughts on Lucid. Are you buying? Are you selling? What did you do with Lucid? And is anyone out there playing Lucid's earnings through options? If so, what are you doing? Are you being a little bit more on the cautious side with hedging, or are you buying call options? What are you generally doing? One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. Put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades, worthwhile to pop over there and check that out. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.